Violet wasn't fooled for even a second as she stood staring at the man she'd walked into. She knew at once it was Count Olaf. Violet, what are you doing in this aisle? Aunt Josephine said, walking up behind her. This aisle contains foods that need to be heated, and you know. When she saw Count Olaf, she stopped speaking. For a second, Violet thought that Aunt Josephine had recognized him too. But then Aunt Josephine smiled, and Violet's hopes were dashed, a word which here means shattered. Hello, Count Olaf said, smiling at Aunt Josephine. I was just apologizing for running into your sister here. Aunt Josephine's face grew bright red, seeming even brighter under her white hair. Oh no, she said, as Klaus and Sunny came down the aisle to see what all the fuss was about. Violet is not my sister, sir. I'm her legal guardian. Count Olaf clapped one hand to his face, as if Aunt Josephine had just told him she was the tooth fairy. I cannot believe it, he said. Madam, you don't look nearly old enough to be anyone's guardian. Aunt Josephine blushed again. Well, sir, I have lived by the lake my whole life, and some people have told me that it keeps me looking youthful. I would be happy to have the acquaintance of a local personage, Count Olaf said, tipping his blue sailor hat and using a silly word which here means person. I am new to this town and beginning a new business, so I am eager to make new acquaintances. Allow me to introduce myself. Klaus and I are happy to introduce you, Violet said, with more bravery than I would have had when faced with meeting Count Olaf again. Aunt Josephine, this is Count... No, Violet, Aunt Josephine interrupted. Watch your grammar. You should have said, Klaus and I will be happy to introduce you, because you haven't introduced us yet. But, Violet started to say. Now, Veronica, Count Olaf said, his one eye shining brightly as he looked down at her. Your guardian is right. Before you make any other mistakes, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Captain Sham, and I have a new business renting sailboats out on Damocles Dock. I am happy to make your acquaintance, Miss... I am Josephine Antwistle, Aunt Josephine said, and these are Violet, Klaus, and little Sonny Baudelaire. Little Sonny, Captain Sham repeated, sounding as if he were eating Sonny rather than greeting her. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. Perhaps someday I can take you out on the lake for a little boat ride. Jing, Sonny shrieked, which probably meant something like, I would rather eat dirt. We're not going anywhere with you, Klaus said. Aunt Josephine blushed again and looked sharply at the three children. The children seem to have forgotten their manners as well as their grammar, she said. Please apologize to Captain Sham at once. He's not Captain Sham, Violet said impatiently. He's Count Olaf. Aunt Josephine gasped and looked from the anxious faces of the Baudelaires to the calm face of Captain Sham. He had a grin on his face, but his smile had slipped a notch, a phrase which here means grown less confident as he waited to see if Aunt Josephine realized he was really Count Olaf in disguise. Aunt Josephine looked him over from head to toe and then frowned. Mr. Poe told me to be on the watch for Count Olaf, she said finally. But he did also say that you children tended to see him everywhere. We see him everywhere, Klaus said tiredly, because he is everywhere. Who is this Count Omar person? Captain Sham asked. Count Olaf, Aunt Josephine said, is a terrible man who is standing right in front of us, Violet finished. I don't care what he calls himself. He has the same shiny eyes, the same single eyebrow. But plenty of people have those characteristics, Aunt Josephine said. Why, my mother-in-law had not only one eyebrow, but also had one ear. The tattoo, Klaus said. Look for the tattoo. Count Olaf has a tattoo of an eye on his left ankle. Captain Sham sighed, and then, with difficulty, he lifted his peg leg so everyone could get a clear look at it. It was made of dark wood that was polished to a shine as brightly as his eye, and it was attached to his left knee with a curved metal hinge. But I don't even have a left ankle, he said in a whiny voice. It was all chewed away by the lachrymose leeches. Aunt Josephine's eyes welled up, and she placed a hand on Captain Sham's shoulder. Oh, you poor man, she said. And the children knew at once that they were doomed. Did you hear what Captain Sham said? She asked them. Violet tried one more time, knowing it would probably be futile, a word which here means filled with futility. He's not Captain Sham, she said. You don't think he would allow the lachrymose leeches to chew off his leg, Aunt Josephine said. Just to play a prank on you? Tell us, Captain Sham, tell us how it happened. Well, I was sitting on my boat just a few weeks ago, Captain Sham said. I was eating some pasta and puttanesca sauce, and I spilled some on my leg. Before I knew it, the leeches were attacking. That's just how it happened with my husband, Aunt Josephine said, biting her lip. The Baudelaires, all three of them, clenched their fists in frustration. They knew Captain Sham's story about the puttanesca sauce was as phony as his name, but they couldn't prove it. Here, Captain Sham said, pulling a small card out of his pocket and handing it to Aunt Josephine. Take my business card, and next time you're in town, perhaps you can enjoy a cup of tea. That sounds delightful, Aunt Josephine said, reading his card. Captain Sham's sailboats. Every boat has its own sail. Oh, Captain, you have made a serious grammatical error here. Oh, what? Captain Sham said, raising his eyebrow. This car says it's with an apostrophe. IT apostrophe S always means it is. You don't mean to say every boat has its own sail. You simply mean to say it's, belonging to it. It's a very common mistake, Captain Sham, but a dreadful one. Captain Sham's face darkened, and it looked for a minute like he was going to raise his peg leg again and kick Aunt Josephine with all his might. But then he smiled and his face cleared. "Thank you for pointing that out," he said finally. "You're welcome," Aunt Josephine said. "Come, children, it's time to pay for our groceries. I hope to see you soon, Captain Sham." Captain Sham smiled and waved goodbye, but the Baudelaires watched as the smile turned to a sneer as soon as Aunt Josephine had turned her back. He had fooled her, and there was nothing the Baudelaires could do about it. They spent the rest of the afternoon trudging back up the hill carrying the groceries, but the heaviness of the cucumbers and limes was nothing compared to the heaviness in the orphans' hearts. All the way up the hill, Aunt Josephine talked about Captain Sham and what a nice man he was, and how much she hoped that they would see him again, while the children knew he was really Count Olaf and a terrible man and hoped they would never see him for the rest of their lives. There is an expression that, I am sad to say, is appropriate for this part of the story. The expression is falling for something hook, line, and sinker, and it comes from the world of fishing. The hook, the line, and the sinker are all parts of a fishing rod, and they work together to lure fish out of the ocean to their doom. If somebody is falling for something hook, line, and sinker, they are believing a bunch of lies and may find themselves doomed as a result. Aunt Josephine was falling for Captain Sham's lies, hook, line, and sinker, but it was Violet, Klaus, and Sunny who were feeling doomed. As they walked up the hill in silence, the children looked down at Lake Lachrymose and felt the chill of doom fall over their hearts. It made the three siblings feel very cold and lost, as if they were not simply looking at the shadowy lake, but had been dropped into the middle of its depths.